Have you ever caught yourself staring out the window, wondering how the hell you got here? Not in a bad way, but in that quiet moment when the house is finally still and you're left alone with your own thoughts. Maybe it's after another long day of work, or while sitting in traffic, or even during those early morning hours when the world hasn't quite woken up yet. There's a thought that creeps in. Is this it? Is this the life I'm going to keep living from here on out? If you've asked yourself that, you're not alone. And you're definitely not broken. It's normal, especially in the middle of your life, to question whether you're on the path you were really meant for. Society has a funny way of convincing us that by the time we've got some gray at the temples, the window of change is already closed. That we should settle in, keep things steady, and not make waves. But the truth is, the idea that reinvention has an expiration date, that's one of the biggest lies we've ever been sold. This stage of life, your prime, isn't the end of the road. It's a turning point. And believe it or not, it might just be the best time to reinvent yourself. Because now you've got something that you didn't have in your 20s or even your 30s: clarity, experience, grit, and maybe even the realization that life's too damn short to live out someone else's script. Now, before we dive into how you can actually do that, let's be real. The desire to reinvent yourself often starts from a place of frustration. Maybe you've built a career that doesn't excite you anymore. Maybe your relationship feels more like a routine than a connection. Or maybe you've just woken up to the fact that somewhere along the way, you stopped feeling proud of the man in the mirror. And instead of chasing what matters to you, you've been managing expectations, staying afloat, and trying not to rock the boat. But here's the thing, reinvention doesn't have to mean blowing up your life. It's not about ditching responsibilities or pretending you're 20 again. It's about reconnecting with the parts of yourself that got buried under all the noise. It starts small. Maybe it's something you've always wanted to try. Learning a skill, starting a side hustle, picking up an instrument, training your body differently, writing that book, switching careers, or even changing how you show up in your daily life. These aren't pipe dreams. These are choices. And the difference between a daydream and a transformation is action. The first shift has to happen internally. You've got to let go of the belief that your best years are behind you. You're not running out of time, you're just stepping into a season where every decision carries weight. And that's powerful. Because when you begin to see yourself as someone capable of change, not someone stuck in routine, everything starts to open up. Reinvention doesn't start with a plan. It starts with a belief that you're still growing, still evolving, still becoming. So maybe you've been thinking about it for a while, but something's been holding you back. Fear of failure, fear of judgment. Or maybe it's just that subtle voice that says, you're too far along to start over. But starting over isn't the same as starting from scratch. You're not empty. You're equipped. Everything you've lived through, the wins, the losses, the setbacks, the wisdom, it's all part of your toolkit now. You're not beginning at zero. You're beginning with experience. That's not a weakness. That's a damn advantage. And here's where it gets interesting. Once you stop asking if it's too late and start asking what's next, your entire mindset shifts. Because now, you're no longer trying to catch up to some younger version of yourself. You're building forward with intention, with purpose, and with the freedom to make decisions that are finally aligned with you. Now that we've shaken off some of those old beliefs about age and possibility, let's look at what happens when you start putting that mindset into motion. Once you've decided that staying where you are is no longer an option, the question becomes, what do you actually want to move toward? That's the part most men skip over. We get so used to operating on autopilot, handling responsibilities, meeting deadlines, showing up for everyone else, that when the time finally comes to think about ourselves, we're not even sure what we want anymore. The real work of reinvention begins not with doing, but with listening. Listening to the things you've been silencing for years, the hobbies that got shelved, the passions that faded into the background, the ideas you dismissed because they didn't seem practical at the time. There's a quiet kind of bravery in choosing to dream again, especially when life has already given you a few bruises. But clarity comes from movement. You don't have to have every step mapped out to begin. You just have to take the next right one. Maybe that means signing up for a workshop, having an honest conversation you've been avoiding, or reaching out to someone who inspires you. Action creates momentum, and momentum fuels belief. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. You just need to prove to yourself that change is possible, even in small doses. One of the biggest things that holds men back from reinventing themselves is the idea that they need permission. Whether it's from family, friends, or even their own inner voice, there's this unspoken rule that says you've made your choices and now you have to live with them. But that's a myth. You're not chained to old versions of yourself. You're allowed to outgrow things. You're allowed to want something different than you did 10 years ago. Reinvention is not a betrayal of your past. It's a commitment to your future. And here's something most people won't tell you. It's not always going to be exciting. A lot of the journey is going to feel uncertain, even uncomfortable. But that discomfort, it's a sign that you're stretching, that you're stepping into something bigger than what you've known. Growth rarely feels like a victory march. Sometimes it looks like waking up earlier than you'd like, learning something that makes you feel like a beginner, or sitting in silence while others don't quite understand your choices. But discomfort is not danger. It's a signal that you're on the edge of something meaningful. You also don't have to make this journey alone. A big part of reinventing yourself is surrounding yourself with people who get it. People who don't just tolerate your growth, but encourage it. That might mean building new friendships or reconnecting with mentors who once believed in you. It might even mean outgrowing certain relationships that are more invested in your old self than your evolving one. The people you choose to spend time with will either reinforce the belief that you're stuck or help you remember that you're just getting started. What's powerful about this chapter of life is that you know how to follow through. You've handled stress, pressure, and responsibilities most people never see. You've figured things out when it mattered. That kind of resilience isn't just impressive, it's usable. When you apply it to your own growth, not just survival, you become unstoppable. Reinvention doesn't require talent. It requires commitment. The kind you already know how to give, just now you're aiming it at yourself. And when you begin to see even the smallest shift taking shape, when you start waking up with a little more fire, when you feel that flicker of excitement about your day, you know you're on the right track. Not because everything suddenly makes sense, but because for the first time in a long time, you're choosing yourself without apology. Let's keep going and explore how that kind of inner shift starts to show up in the outside world. Once that internal spark gets lit, you'll start to notice subtle shifts in how you show up, not just for others, but for yourself. Things that used to drain you begin to feel optional. You stop forcing yourself into roles that no longer fit, and instead start showing up in ways that feel more aligned with who you actually are. It's not about abandoning responsibilities or chasing some fantasy. It's about making sure the life you're building now reflects your values, not just your past decisions. The reward isn't just a better version of your job, your routine, or your habits. It's a deeper sense of alignment. And that kind of peace is priceless. When you begin living from that place, new opportunities tend to find you. Not because the universe suddenly owes you something, but because you've made space. When you clear out the noise, the hesitation, the clutter of old doubts, there's room for better things to land. That job you thought you were underqualified for suddenly feels within reach. That idea you kept pushing aside, now you've got the energy to explore it. When you change how you see yourself, the world often mirrors it back. People start responding to you differently because you're no longer carrying the same tired script. You've rewritten your narrative, and it shows in your posture, your words, your decisions. Sometimes reinvention isn't about adding anything new. It's about removing what no longer fits. That can be habits, roles, or even self-imposed limitations. It takes courage to release things that feel familiar but are quietly holding you back. But the reward is clarity. Not just about what you want, but about who you are. You stop needing to prove anything to anyone. You're not chasing external validation anymore. You're rooted in a kind of self-trust that's hard to shake. And that makes you magnetic. People are drawn to those who know themselves and live accordingly. As that confidence grows, you'll also notice your tolerance for settling shrinks. Not in a rigid or arrogant way, just in a calm, grounded refusal to live below your potential. You start speaking up where you used to stay quiet. You push a little harder where you once gave up too soon. And instead of waiting for the right moment, you begin to realize you are the right moment. Life isn't waiting around for a permission slip. It's inviting you to engage fully right now as you are. And even when the results don't come immediately, the process itself becomes worth it. Because every small decision to bet on yourself adds up. Every time you act in alignment with your growth, you build a stronger foundation. Reinvention isn't some final destination where everything is figured out. It's a living process. It shifts and evolves, just like you do. Some days it'll feel like progress, other days like starting over. But both are part of the journey. And the longer you stay with it, the more natural it becomes to live on your own terms. So if you've been wondering whether you're too far along to start something new, the real question isn't, am I too old? It's, am I willing to grow again? And if you are, even just a little, then the answer is already clear. You're right on time. Let me know what part of your life you're ready to reinvent in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this message resonated, hit the like button and subscribe for more conversations like this. You deserve a life that reflects who you've become, not just who you used to be. Here's to being in your prime and finally living like it.